All right, boys and girls, I hope everybody's doing well. Today we are going to talk about interpreting visual information. We have been working on uh, context clues, text features for the past week, so we're going to start putting some of those skills to use. And this is what you're going to do. All right, it says read. While reading informational text, you often see photos, diagrams, and timelines. These visuals explain ideas about a topic that words alone cannot. You also might see graphs with quantitative information in the form of numbers or other data. If you come across a special text feature, figure out its purpose. Ask yourself, what information does it give? How does it work together with text details to add to your understanding of the topic? So read the text and study the bar graph, figure out how the graph helps you understand the text. So this is what we're going to be working with right here. And this is the fish in a fish tank. And this shows the number of fish. So if you look down here, well, the type of fish, there's 2 angelfish, there's 8 Danio fish, and there are 8 tetra fish. All right, and I'm going to read this for you. It says, a few months ago, I helped my science teacher set up a fish tank. The tank has 3 types of fish. We put in just 2 of the largest type of fish and many of the smaller types of fish. The tank is large enough to follow this rule. Each fish needs about 1 gallon of water to be healthy. So that's your question, okay? So we're going to go down to the assignment real quick. And it said, think. Were you able to interpret or figure out the information in the text in the graph? From the details, you should have a good idea of how many fish are in the tank and what kinds of fish live in it. Use the passage and the graph to fill in the chart below. So, what the text says. The tank has 3 types of fish. What does the graph show? What types of fish are in there? Okay. Now, what's another question you could ask? What is the rule of the tank and the amount of water that each fish should have? Okay, let's do that question. What is the rule for the amount of water each fish should have in the tank? And then tell us what the graph shows by how many fish are in there. Okay, that's a pretty easy one. Let's go to this next assignment. This won't take you too long, but I really wanted you to look at this. It's features of the ocean floor. Okay, so look, it's a really cool diagram of the ocean floor. You see these words abyss, abyssal plain, ocean trench. So this is the bottom of the ocean you are essentially looking at, okay? And these are huge valleys in the ocean floor. So we're going to be talking about the continental shelf, the continental slope, the abyss, the Mariana Trench. These are all very, very common on the bottom of the ocean. And they're common on land too. If you go to the mountains, it looks just like the mountains, except for it's underneath the water. And there's no trees all over the mountains down there. It's just mud and sand. So very, very similar, okay? So I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to show you your assignment. Picture this. Well, hold on. Features of the Ocean Floor by Connie Rather. Picture this. You're in a submarine right next to a continent. Looking down, you see a part of the ocean floor called the continental shelf. Right there, okay? Continental shelf. Now head out to sea. The ocean floor drops away to form the continental slope. There's the slope right there with my mouse. You see it? You might pass through a range of seamounts or volcanoes rising from the ocean floor. In time, you'll reach the abysmal plain, a dark realm with deep valleys called trenches. Finally, you might encounter long, snake-like ocean ridges that rise from the ocean floor. They connect to form a long chain of underwater mountains around the planet. So here's the trench. So you can see that's really, 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 really deep. Hold on, let me get out there. That's really, really, really deep. You're talking about 3-4 miles deep down in the ocean. So even though this is like a diagram, it doesn't really tell you how deep it is, but this is extremely deep. Okay, let's keep going. So here's another really cool little diagram, it says the highest and the deepest places on Earth. So if you look right here, and we're going to follow this from 0 all the way up to 5, and you see where I'm circling the top of that like ice cream cone? That is the miles up into the air that this mountain goes, Mount Everest. So look at that. It's between 5 and 6. It's going up 5.5 miles into the air. That's incredible, right? Well, then look, the Mariana Trench, this one is in the blue, and it's going against Mount Everest right there. So it's all blue. So let's say this is the surface of the water of the ocean. How far down does this go down into the water to the ocean floor? So if that's 0 and we're going all the way up to here, that is almost 7 miles deep. So the Mariana Trench, or Mariana, whichever one you want to call it, they're both correct, is the deepest part of the abyss, the ocean. Obviously, there's no light down there. It's super dark. That's where the animals that use bioluminescence we talked about the other day, that's where most of those animals live. They get energy from the water and from themselves, and they can bioluminesce and light themselves up. Really cool. That's usually where they live. All right, so let's go right here. It says the deepest ocean trench in the world is the Mariana Trench in the Pacific. It is one of the most difficult places to reach on Earth. It is so deep that if Mount Everest, one of the tallest mountains in the world, were picked up and put at the bottom of the trench, the mountain would still be covered with water. So that means that you could put Mount Everest into the Mariana Trench and it would still be covered with water. That's how deep the Mariana Trench is. It's really deep. I'm sure it's really scary down there too. I do not want to go down there, to tell you that. So right here, this is your assignment, and I want you to use the text above. Okay, you can use the diagrams, which is what I think is probably going to be the most useful. Okay, this guy right here and this guy right here. Those are the ones you really want to focus on, because remember, that's what we're kind of working on. And it says, use information about the abyssal plain and the Mariana Trench to complete the chart below. Identify what you learned from the text and what you learned from each diagram. Okay, so for the abyssal plain, you're going to come over and it says what the diagram shows. You're going to talk about all the features of the ocean floor. You remember, I just went over them. I just read them to you. And then you're going to come down here and you're going to talk about the Mariana Trench. And it says the highest and deepest places on Earth. Well, that's this one right here, the one we just went over. So you should be able to write some really cool facts about that, because I read them to you and I also talked to you about them. So finish that up as well. And I expect to see this right here on a piece of paper, as well as this as well. Okay? So what the text says, what the graph shows. And I'm going to include this on your Google Doc, lesson 22, okay? If you have any problems, give me an email and I'll be glad to help you.